Welcome to Clarksville Baptist Church. We all please stand and we'll worship together. Saturday was silent, surely it was through. But since it was possible, thanks out you. Friday's disappointment, the Sunday's empty too. Since when has impossible never stopped you? This is the sound of a drive-on driving. This is the praise make a dead man walk again. Hoping the grave, I'm coming out, I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of a drive-on traveling. Pentecostal fire, stir something new. You're not gonna run out of miracles anytime soon. Resurrection power runs my legs to it. I believe there's another miracle here in this room. This is the sound of the drive-on traveling. This is the praise make a dead man walk again. Holding the grave, I'm coming out, I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the drive-on traveling. My God is able to save and deliver and give and restore anything that He wants to. Just as the man who was thrown on the bones of Elijah. If there's anything that He can do, just as the stone that was rolled at the tomb in the garden, what happens when God sends Him new? I feel Him doing it now. I feel Him doing it now. I feel Him doing it now. Do it now. Do it now. This is the sound of the drive-on traveling. This is the praise make a dead man walk again. Oh, in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Oh, in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. Oh, in the grave, I'm coming out. I'm gonna live again. This is the sound of the drive-on traveling. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, Your perfect love is casting out fear. And even when I'm caught in the middle of the storms of this life, I won't turn back. I know You are near, and I will fear no evil, for my God is with me. And if my God is with me, whom then shall I fear? Whom then shall I fear? Singing, no, no, You never let go. Through the calm and through the storm, oh no, You never let go. In every high and every low, oh no, You never let go. Lord, You never let go of me. You keep on running and You never let go. And I can see a light that is coming for the heart that used to wage, and hour by hour, the dead are raised, blessed and saved, the work of your power. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. Yes, God, you're so good. You're so good to me. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. I am favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. I am blessed, I am called, I am healed, I am whole, I am saved in Jesus' name. I am favored, anointed, filled with your power for the glory of Jesus' name. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. Yes, God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Should this life bring suffering, Lord, I will remember what Calvary has bought for me, both now and forever. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. You're so good to me. God, you're so good. God, you're so good. Yes, God, you're so good. You're so good to me. Let's sing the original, church. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. God, you are so good. Without you, where would we be? God, without your grace, where would we be? Lord, without your love, where would we be? You are good. No matter what we're going through right now, no matter the stress in our life, no matter the anxieties, the worries, you are good. Lord, help us always to remember that you are good. Maybe life seems unfair right now. Maybe the Smiths got something that we want, but you're still good, and you always will be. In Jesus' name. Let faith arise. In spite of what I see, Lord, I believe. But help my unbelief, I choose to trust you. No matter what I feel, let faith arise. Let faith arise. For my champion's not dead, he is alive. He already knows my every the kingdom come out at last. For the battle has been won, my God is faithful. When every single word He said is true. God of miracles come, we need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. This world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous still. Oh, there's nothing impossible. This world is shaking, but you cannot be shaken. My heart is breaking, but I'm not broken yet. Your love is fearless. Help me to be courageous still. Oh, there's nothing impossible. The God of miracles come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. God of miracles come. We need your supernatural love to break through. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles. Nothing's impossible. You're the God of miracles.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are a God of miracles. And we pray for miracles to be healed. We ask that you just continue to bless us and watch over us. Keep us healthy and keep us safe all the world over. We pray for our nation, Father, for our leaders as they make decisions as we move forward in this country. Let them be wise and let them hear you speak. We ask, Father, for those in our community and our church leaders that you will speak to them as they continue to bless us with these services, whether we're worshiping here in your sanctuary or online. We are together, Father, and we thank you for that blessing. We especially lift up this morning Daniel Pitter and his continued healing, Father, and peace and clarity. He's still in the hospital, Father, but we just pray that you have mercies upon him and give Jenny. We ask all these things, Father, in your name, as you taught us to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Before we sing our next song, I'd like to introduce to you today Dr. Tony Randall. He'll be speaking with us. And he is a field strategist for the BGA League, and he works with churches throughout Virginia and in Georgia. Before that, Dr. Brooks had served as an associate youth pastor, a senior pastor, and a co-pastor. And he served in the states of Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, North Carolina, and Virginia. Tony's hobbies are reading and fishing and playing tennis, golf, and basketball. And football is also a favorite of Tony's. In his high school days, he was a starting offensive and defensive lineman for an Alabama state championship team. So Tony, when you come and share your message, we look forward to worshiping with you today.
waters deep. Your grace is more. Where grace is found is where you are. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. And where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. So teach my soul to rest in you. When temptation comes my way, when I cannot stand, I'll call on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. And when I cannot stand, I'll call on you. Jesus, you're my hope and stay. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. You believe that this morning? Let's sing it together. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
It is such a joy to be with you today. I do bring greetings on behalf of Dr. John Upton, our executive director, and the entire staff of BJD. We're glad to be partners with you, not only here, but around the world. We've got two passages today. The first one are gospel lessons in Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 23. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Then we find in 2 Timothy chapter 4, beginning in verse 6. As for me, I am already being poured out as a libation, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. From now on there is reserved for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. Do your best to come to me soon. For Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Christians has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, for he is useful in my ministry. And I have sent Tychicus to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, also the books, and above all, the parchments. And then the very first part of verse 21, do your best to come before winter. So I've got a few questions for you that I hope you will spend time, whether here or when you get home and those online, to talk about over lunch. What's important to you right now? Out of all the things that are going on in our lives and all the chaos, what's most important to you? Then a second part of that is, if you knew you only had a couple of months to live, what would be most important? Many years ago, Jim Moore, a pastor, tells a story of a church member, a doctor, who had come in to see him on a Thursday morning. And he was smiling from ear to ear, and he just knew something great must be going on. And finally he said, Pastor Jim, I have to tell you, you don't know this, but I'm an alcoholic. And today marks 15th anniversary of sobriety. And it's because of your pastor friend Tom in Dallas. I got to the point where I was about to lose everything. My job, my health, my family. And Tom is the one that got me help. He got me in an AA program. He helped me with my family. And it's because of him that I am where I am today. And when I finish talking to you, I'm driving to Dallas. And I'm going to tell Tom what I should have told him a long time ago. How indebted I am to him. With that, Jim said, oh, doctor, I'm so sorry. Tom had a heart attack and passed away last week at a church meeting. Jim said the face of this doctor in shock was hard because he had waited too long. In our passage today, we have Paul asking Timothy to come soon. Paul is in jail. He knows his time is about over. He still has Luke with him, but others have deserted him along the way. He tells Timothy, please come and bring my cloak, my outer garment to keep me warm for the winter. Bring my books and my parchments, in other words, things to keep the mind sharp, and also the parchments were his scriptures. And also bring with you Mark, who's been a help in my ministry. Now I have to say this real quick. You might remember in the first missionary journey, Paul, Barnabas, and Mark went together. And halfway through, Mark left. When they came back, Paul and Barnabas decided to go on a second missionary journey. And Barnabas says, I want Mark to come with us. And Paul says, no, I'm not taking him. He quit last time on us. So Barnabas said, well, why don't you take Silas, and I will take John Mark, and we will go on a missionary journey. And now we have this at the end of Paul's life. He's in jail. He knows he's going to be executed soon, saying, please bring Mark with you. He's been a help in my ministry. Somewhere along the way, they reconciled. What are those things that you have put off for many years? Who are those persons that you should have said thank you a long time ago? Persons who mentored you, who encouraged you in many different situations in life? What are you waiting for? Paul tells Timothy at the very end to come before winter. Now that's very important. And Clarence McCartney, a pastor at First Presbyterian in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania many years ago, was one of the first to use this idea of come before winter from this passage. And when he finished preaching that message, people were so inspired in the church that they voted that week that every year, as long as he was pastor at First Presbyterian in Pittsburgh, he was to preach that sermon once every year. And he did for the next 37 years. Now he had this picture of Timothy putting things off. He had some things to take care of, and so he waited. Finally, he went down to the dock, and the person at the dock said, Timothy, it's too late. It's cold. It's wintertime. The waters are rough. You'll have to wait till the spring. And then in the spring he comes back and he takes the first ship out and he gets to Rome and he goes to the jail and he says to the jailer, "Hey, I'm Timothy, where's Paul?" And the jailer says, "Oh, Timothy, I'm sorry, Paul was executed during the winter." Every time I would bring a meal to him, Paul would say, "Is it Timothy? Timothy, are you here?" And his last words before he died, "Tell Timothy I love him." Are there things we've been putting off? Those thank yous that we need to say? Perhaps those I love yous? Many years ago, I heard from Gary Smalley was counseling this couple. They've been married 30 years, but their marriage was falling apart. And he counseled them 2 or 3 times. And finally, he turned to the husband and he said, "When was the last time you told your wife you love her?" He said, "I told her on our wedding day and it hasn't changed since." You see what the problem was? Have you told your spouse, your parents, your grandparents, your children and grandchildren that you love them? They need to hear that. They need to know that you love them, that you're proud of them. In the midst of all the chaos right now, when we cannot have this close interaction like we would like with the physical distancing, we need to make sure that they know that they are loved and cared for. But then another one that's really sad for us is this one. Is there a broken relationship that needs to be restored? Is there someone you need to say, "I'm sorry"? I'm thankful for however it happened. Barnabas, probably being the encourager, got Paul and Mark together and worked things out somewhere along the way. Many believe that this Mark was the one who wrote the Gospel of Mark. Had it not been for Barnabas and his encouragement, and Paul and Mark making up, we may not have the Gospel of Mark. Are there relationships broken that need to be restored in your family, with a neighbor, with a coworker, with someone else who needs to know, "I'm sorry, forgive me, let's make things right"? Frederick Buechner kind of puts it this way, to put all of it in perspective. He shares a story about this jewelry store that had all kinds of prices on jewelry, and some robbers broke in one night, but they didn't steal anything. Instead, they switched the price tags. Those things that had expensive price tags, they took off and put the cheap price tags, and those things that were cheap, they put the expensive price tags. People came in the next day and they began to buy things, and those persons who had lots of money bought cheap things and didn't know it, and those who had very little ended up buying very expensive things. Kierkegaard goes on to say that's kind of the way Satan works in our lives. He gets us to focus on those things we think are important, and they're really not. Are you focusing on those things that are most important right now? Are you sharing that you love individuals, that you thank individuals, and that you find a way to ask for forgiveness? The last question that I'll ask: what is God asking you to do this week that you've been putting off? What are those important things that God is asking you to do this week that you've been putting off? Come before winter. Let's pray together. Loving God, as we come to this time, closing out this service, I pray that each one of us will take seriously what you're asking us to do. To restore a relationship, to call old friends or teachers or ministers, others who've impacted our lives, and say thank you. Lord, to say I love you. As we prepare to go out of this sanctuary or prepare to do whatever we're doing at home right now, finishing up this service, I hope all of us will recognize that we worship you not just here in this place or in our homes, but in everything we do every day of our lives. us to recognize that this world is too confused for anything but your truth, too violent for anything but your love. And so now we go forth to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before you.